Because we talked about what entry is and how we can make use of entry to Tkinter. We didn't do really much and not much thing, but we're able to understand how entry works and many ways we can represent it on our render it in our application. So in today's video, we're going to try to render button because right now we're not going to do anything useful with just entry now, because to make use of entry there must be kind of a command that always occurs with it. So there's not really much we can do with this entry. We did a comprehensive, we did a project using this label, but for entry to be really much of a use, there must be button involved. Like I said, there are three main things that must be, you must suppose know, which are the label, entry, and that of the next is the button. What button is, when you click on something, like clicking on button, that's just basically it. And how can we render this in Tkinter? Just basically simple. We're going to say, but using we're able to do this kind of thing. I can say, but this we're able to handle this kind of thing this way because we imported everything on that of Tkinter. So we imported everything that Tkinter module have. So here, instead of us writing Tkinter dot button, you can just call the button directly in this environment. So what we're going to do is, since we have button, and the first thing that button takes is the variable that holds the main application, which is going to be main. Okay, this main is for this guy, this TK main, this guy. So you're going to hold the main. And second thing is going to hold that there's a situation where we want to the button to have text. So we can say the text of the that's button. Let's say we want it to be something like let's say we want something like to be BTN, or let's say BTN. And then the button tends to take a whole lot of parameter like that of command. When we create a function, we are going to give it this of our that the command execute a function. That is what the command does. It must be a function for it to be executed. So the next thing, we're not going to give the command any parameter because we don't have function now that we want to execute. But we want to, let's try rendering this to see how the button looks like. If we run it now, the button is not going to show because we didn't display it on the screen. So what we're going to do is to use dot grid. You can see dot grid. And since we're using dot grid, this y, and this was in row 5. So we want the button to be below the entries, which is, we can say it's going to be in row 6. It can be in the same column, but it doesn't really matter. So we can just copy this row column here and then place it inside there. Here is going to be row 6. But instead of us doing, since we want to start from the top, so we can say here to be 2, and here let's change this guy to 1, meaning that this entry is not going to be in row 1, and this column is not going to be, this button is not going to be in row 2. So let's run it and see our output. As you can see here, this is row 1 and this is row 2. We can click the button. As you can see, it's not doing anything, basically not doing anything. No matter how many times we click on it, it's not going to do it because there's no command on it that can use to execute anything on it. So there's a whole lot of other parameters that this button takes. There's not just only text and then the main variable that holds the TK. So it also, like I said, it holds that on is used to handle for functions, but right now we don't have any functions to handle. So we're going to remove this. In our next video, we're going to make use of this command to, we're going to create a basic function. We're going to make use of this command to handle those kind of command that we want. But next, we are going to explain the logic behind when it comes to application creation. Or the logic behind it is not really hard to understand, but just that it can be a little bit tricky for beginners. So in the next video, we're going to look at the logic that is actually applying and is actually happening here. That's what basically we're going to look at. So it will be easy for you to understand when we're studying some kind of complex things, so you won't be confused or be left out on the way. So I think this is where we're going to draw the curtain for this video. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. I'll be happy to see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.